Right, in this video we are going to look at trigonometry in right-angled triangles. There's other trigonometry which is a grade 7. This is technically a grade 5 and so it can be in the higher or the foundation paper. The first thing you need to know is your SOH CAH TOA, alright? So I want you to take a moment to actually write this down somewhere like in a book, and we're going to discuss the various parts of it. So the SOH in SOH CAH TOA, is SOH. Now the S stands for sine. And it is actually spelled S-I-N-E, which is why I say sine and not sin. On your calculator, they drop off the E at the end. And sine is O over H. O is opposite, and H is hypotenuse. Then you've got CAH. CAH stands for C-A-H, where the C is cosine or cos. The A stands for adjacent, which is a really fancy way of saying right next to, and the H again stands for hypotenuse. Then you've got TOA, and TOA is for tan. Oh, sorry, I put the wrong thing in the wrong place. Bear with me a sec. So you've got TOA, and the T stands for tan, and tan is opposite over adjacent. Now, the most important part of trig is to know what goes where and being able to identify what goes where. So the first thing I need you to do is make sure you've written that down. Pause the video if necessary so that you've got it, and then we're going to play around with some triangles before we get into the real nitty-gritty of trig. So if we look here, okay, so I've got a right angle triangle there. And let's, for example, say that I'm putting an angle in that corner. What does that mean? Where's the O, where's the H, and where's the A? So the H, or the hypotenuse, is always the longest side, or the side opposite the right angle. So this is the hypotenuse. Then you need to identify your A and your O. Now, when I said O stood for opposite, it quite literally means that it is opposite the little angle given. Okay, so if the little angle was 30 degrees, it's opposite the 30. If the little angle is something we're still trying to find, that's still opposite to it. And whatever is left over is called the adjacent. All right, so let's erase that and try it again. What if this time I put the angle there? Now what is your O, your H, and your A? So your H is still the longest side, or the side opposite the right angle. Your opposite, or your O, is opposite the little angle. So this is your opposite. And whatever is left over is the adjacent. That is the first skill. If you can label your triangle properly, you've already got one step down, and we just work on the rest of them. So let's put all these skills to the test. I've got a triangle here. I would suggest that you copy it down because it's so much easier to understand maths when you engage with it. So in this triangle, I've got this 30 degrees. So if that is the acute angle and I look opposite to it, this is my opposite side. My hypotenuse is always the longest side, and my adjacent is whatever is left over. Now that I've identified that, what rule am I using? Sine, cos, or tan? And so this is where you need to think a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to quickly just remind you that it is SOH CAH TOA. Okay, so in this question, do I have the value of H? Yes, I know that the value of H is 28 meters. Do I have the value of O? Now, it's a trick question because you're going to say no because it's X. But technically, I do have the value of O. It is X. It's just that it's an unknown, but that doesn't matter. So I do have the value of O. What I don't have is the value of A, so I'm going to scratch out A. So which rule uses H and O? So if you look at all your trig identities up here, The only rule that has H and O in it is SOH. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out that trig triangle. I call it a trig triangle. So I'm going to draw it out. And now remember, it is SOH. So in the bottom left-hand corner, I'm going to write sine. Now, sine on its own is absolutely useless. It has to have an angle attached to it. So I'm going to say sine 30. In the top little bit, I'm going to put whatever the O value was. So what was my O value? My O value was X. So I'm going to write X up here. In this bottom corner, I'm going to put my H value. So what was my H value? 28. So now I've got to try and figure out, what does this mean? Okay? Now hopefully you kind of recognize these triangles from science because they also use them. If I had to totally ignore, now excuse my green highlight or pen here, if I had to totally ignore where the X is and cover it up, what I've got is sine 30 next to the 28. And so when things are next to each other, I'm going to times them. So on your calculator, you're going to type sine 30. Your calculator most likely will open a bracket in front of the 30. You must remember to close it, otherwise you're going to get the wrong answer. So you're going to type into your calculator sine 30 times 28. And what you should get is 14. So what that means is that X is 14. Okay, make sure you've got that. We can move on to our next question. All right, I hope you've got your SOH CAH TOA close by, written down somewhere, because I'm not going to write it down again for you. We need to start learning. So this is my triangle. Let's identify H, O, and A. Let's start with H, the hypotenuse. Where is that? The hypotenuse is always the longest side. Let's find O, because that's the next easiest thing. So if this is the angle given in the question, then the side opposite to it is called O. And whatever side I have not labeled is called A. Now let's try and decide which rule I'm using. Do I have the value of A? Yes, it's 3.5. Do I have the value of H? Yes, it's X. Do I have the value of O? No, there's nothing there. So which rule uses A and H? So out of your SOH CAH TOA rules, the only rule that uses A and H is cos. Now I heard some teacher once say this, and I think it's brilliant, and I'm going to say it to you. Here, do you see that everything is in the corner? I've got this X on the side, and I've got the 60, and I've got this. Everything is nice in the corner, and it's cozy cos in the corner. Okay, compare it to the sine question, where it was opposite over there and then the hypotenuse. A cos question is a cozy cos in the corner. So this is a cos question. So I'm going to draw my trig triangle. We've decided it's a cozy cos question, so it's C-A-H. And now I'm going to fill in all the bits. So in the bottom left, I'm going to say cos 60. Because remember, cos on its own is useless. It needs an angle. Then up here, I need the value of A. So look at your diagram. What is the value of A? Value of A is 3.5. So up here, I'm going to write 3.5. Then I need the value of H, because that's the last bit. So the value of H is X, and I'm going to write X over here. Now in the previous question, I crossed out the X to try and understand what was going on, and I'm going to do the same. So let's scratch that out. Can you see this time there's a 3.5 on the top and a cos 60 at the bottom? When things are top and bottom, not side to side, it means that I am dividing. So this is a dividing question. And you will do the top divided by the bottom. So on your calculator, you are going to type 3.5 divided by cos 60. And remember to close those brackets. So 3.5 divided by cos 60 gives me 7. And so X equals 7. Right, let's go on to the last question. Okay, the last one for this particular exercise. So let's identify adjacent, opposite, and hypotenuse. So this is my hypotenuse. It's always the longest side. If this is the acute angle, I look across from it, and this is the opposite, and whatever is left over is called the adjacent. I have an opposite. I have an adjacent. I am not using the hypotenuse. Out of your 3 rules, which one uses O and A? Is it SOH, CAH, or TOA? I'm hoping you realize it's TOA. So I draw my trig triangle, and I'm reminding myself that it's TOA, and now I'm going to fill in all the bits. So in the bottom left-hand corner, I'm going to write tan of the acute angle. Next, what is my opposite value? My opposite value was 6. So over here, I'm going to write 6. What was my adjacent value? My adjacent value was x. Is this a timesing question, or is this a dividing question? Because I've got 6 on top of the tan 25 and x is in the corner, it is a dividing question. So you're going to say 6 divided by tan 25, and you should get x to be 12.9. 12.86, but we round it to 12.9. Okay, check that. Make sure you've got them in your books and that you understand that. Right, here are 4 questions. I would like you to try these 4 questions on your own. Try them. If you're not happy to try, by all means, press play still. But if you're willing to try, press pause, draw them out, work them out, and when you press play again, we'll go through them. Right, so let's look at question 1. So if I look at question 1, I've got a hypotenuse, an opposite, and an adjacent. I've got the adjacent. I'm trying to find the hypotenuse. I don't need the O. It's a cozy cos corner because I've got that length, the angle, and that length. So there's my cozy cos in the corner. So I'm going to say trig triangle, cos of 24. And then remember, cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. My adjacent is 11, and my hypotenuse is x. That means that this is a dividing question. So I'm going to say 11 divided by cos 24, and I get 12.0. It's actually 12.04. You can just say 12 or 12.0. Let's look at question 2. Hypotenuse. If that's the acute angle, then here's my opposite, and here's my adjacent. I have the adjacent. I am looking for the opposite. I don't have the hypotenuse. O and A makes it a tan question. So I'm going to draw my trig triangle. I now know it's a tan question, so I'm going to say tan of 37. And let's just remind ourselves, tan is opposite over adjacent. So my opposite is x. My adjacent is 4. Is this a times or a divide question? This is a timesing question because the tan 37 is right next to the 4. So I'm going to say tan 37 times 4, and I get my x to be 3.01. Right, let's look at question 3. I've got a hypotenuse. If this is my acute angle, then I've got an opposite and I've got an adjacent. I'm trying to find the adjacent, and I've got the opposite, and I don't need the hypotenuse, which means that this is a tan question again. So let's draw the trig triangle. I'm going to say tan 48. Tan is, remember, opposite over adjacent. So what was the opposite? The opposite was 15. The adjacent is x. So this time, the x is in the corner and the 15 is on top. So is this a times or a divide question? This is a divide question. So I'm going to say 15 divided by tan 48, and I get 13.5. Right, let's look at the last one. I've got my hypotenuse. I've got my opposite and my adjacent. Okay, did you notice the cosy cos? Right, I didn't need the opposite. H and A means cos. So I'm going to draw my trig triangle. It's a cosy cos of 29 degrees. Cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. My adjacent is x. My hypotenuse is 11. Is this a timesing or a dividing question? This is a timesing one. So I'm going to say cos 29 times 11. And I get 9.6. Right, so we've done 4. Now there are another 4 that I'm going to give you in a second. For those, I'm only just going to give you the answer. So I suggest, again, you press pause and try them yourself, and then I'll give you the answer. Right, so these are another 4 questions. I would suggest you try them on your own. That's how you learn, by engaging with the work. And when you press play, the answers will be on the screen for you. All right, and here are the answers to these 4 questions. For the question 5, I was using sine, and I was finding the hypotenuse, so it was a dividing question, and I got 7.2. For question 6, I used sine again, but this time it was a timesing question because I was trying to find the opposite, and I got 2.8. For question 7, it was a cosy cos. I was trying to find the hypotenuse, so I was dividing, and I got 9.7. And for the last one, it was a tan question. I was trying to find the opposite, and so I was timesing. Mark your work. Let's see how you did. All right, so this one is different. This time we're trying to find an angle. Okay? Last time, or the previous ones, we were trying to find a side. This time we're trying to find an angle. But you started exactly the same way. So I've got a hypotenuse. I've got an opposite because that is the angle. I don't know what it is, but that's not the point. I know that that's the angle I'm trying to find. And so opposite to it would be 3. And whatever's left over is the adjacent. I don't need the adjacent. I've got O and H, which by now I'm hoping you realize means that it is sine. Right, so I've got sine x, and sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So this time, unlike the previous ones, what I'm looking for is actually in the bottom left-hand corner. That's where the x's are. If I had to cover all of that up, I've got 3 over 7. And so what I want you to do is figure out what is 3 divided by 7. Now, you're going to type that in on your calculator. You're going to say 3 divided by 7 equals, and you're going to press your format or your SD, and you're going to get 0.4. And I want you to think to yourself, there is no possible way an angle would be 0.4 degrees. And so, in that moment, I want you to think, O shift. I don't know what you thought I was going to write, but it's O shift. That's what I want you to think to yourself. Okay, so I've made some photos of my calculator to help you. So I did 3 divided by 7. I pressed my format button and I got 0.42. At this point, I think O shift. And the reason I want you to think to O shift is because you are going to press shift. What rule were we using? In this question, we were using sine. So you pressed shift, let go, sine, let go, equals, let go, and you will get 25.37. So try that again. You're going to say 3 divided by 7, shift, sine, equals, and you should get 25.37. All right, let's do it again. So there is the angle I'm looking for. If I look opposite to it, that's my O, my hypotenuse, and my adjacent. This is a cosy cos question. So I'm going to draw my trig triangle. We've decided it's a cosy cos question. and cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. My adjacent is 15 and my hypotenuse is 22. Now, if you have a calculator, do this with me. We are dividing. We're trying to find cos here. We are dividing. So we're going to say 15 divided by 22, and my calculator is going to give me 0.68. Make sure you've got that with me. Now, it's not 0.68. It cannot be. O shift. So you press shift, and then this time we're going to press cos because we're using cos instead of sine. So shift, cos equals, and you absolutely must get 47.01. Please make sure you are in fact getting that. All right, let's try one more. That is the angle I'm trying to find. Opposite to it is 12. The hypotenuse is the longest length. Left over is adjacent. Not using the hypotenuse. O and A means tan. So I draw my trig triangle, and I'm going to say tan x. Remember, tan is opposite over adjacent. So my opposite is 12. My adjacent is 15. We are dividing to find an angle. So again, on your calculators, do this with me. 12 divided by 15, you should get 0.8. 0.8 means O shift. Shift tan equals, and you should get your x to be 38.66 or 38.7. All right, so if you're using sine, it's shift sine. If you're using cos, it's shift cos. You've got to pay attention to which rule you're using. Okay, so I want you to make sure you've got all of that written down, and on the next slide, you are then going to try some questions on your own. All right, so here are 4 questions for you to try. They're all questions where you're trying to find an angle. I'll do the first one with you, and then you try and do the last 3. So if we look at the question 1, the angle I'm looking for is in this top corner. So I'll go across, and that's my opposite. Hypotenuse is always the longest, and your adjacent. This is a cozy cos question. So I'm going to draw my trig triangle. We've already determined it's a cozy cos, so I'm going to say cos x, and cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. So my adjacent is 11, my hypotenuse is 21. So we type into our calculators 11 divided by 21, you're going to get 0.5238. Because this is a cos question, you're going to go shift, cos equals, and you should get that angle to be 58.4. All right, can you please try the next 3? So press pause, try this next 3 on your own. And when you're ready to press play, the answers will be on the board for you. All right, and there are the last 3 answers. So questions 2 to 4. For question 2, it was sine because you had the opposite and the hypotenuse, and then you go shift sine. For question 3, it was a tan question because you had the adjacent and the opposite. Remember, adjacent goes on top and opposite goes at the bottom. And then because you're finding an angle, you're going to say shift tan. And then for question 4, you have another cozy cos, and the answer was 36.9. All right, I really hope this video helped you, and good luck with any tests coming up.